Call to order this Thursday, October 17th meeting of the Planning Commission. Does anyone on the Planning Commission have an addition to the agenda for tonight? I have one before we go into public comment, which I mentioned before we got on the recording, but I should mention for the recording. We have a few folks here to share their thoughts about sawmills, like Gordon did 2 meetings ago. And I'll allow them to introduce themselves in a second for the recording. But I asked Brad Holden, even though when I'd done the agenda, obviously didn't know anyone was coming, and I scheduled sawmills for 6:50 for us to talk about it. So I asked Brad if I could move that up, even though the agenda had already been published, and he told me that was no problem. So unless anyone has any objection, in case these folks are interested in staying, so they don't have to stay for the whole meeting, I'm going to move sawmills up to immediately following public comment. So if people are interested in hanging out for that, is that okay with everyone? Yeah. Okay. Great. Okay. We'll open public comment. I'm going to mention one thing, which is the same thing I told Gordon, just to set expectations. We don't move anywhere near as quickly as the DRB does. We're like long-term planning. So any suggestions we as a commission think are appropriate at the end of the day, then go to the select board, and the select board is probably going to send it to the voters. So you're probably talking like a year plus from now. So you all may already know that, but like we do not move anywhere near like the DRB does, because they're dealing with like actual cases and we're dealing with long-term planning. So I just like to set expectations. That being said, I know we have some folks from the public here, so if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself for Donna, who takes the minutes on the recording. And then we don't have hard rules about like time for anything or public comments, so just please take your time to say what you'd like. Happy to answer any questions, or it's pretty informal. So please, whoever would like to go first.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, I'm Heather Sikorsky. I live at 612 Pleasant Valley Road in Underhill. I do have a statement that I prepared just to make sure I hit all my talking points.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
So I just want to start off with my family and I are strongly opposed to the town considering amending the definition of a sawmill within the land use and development regulations that was mentioned by Gordon in the September 19th meeting, and then mentioned again in October 3rd meeting. Mm-hmm. There was an initial complaint about Gordon Williamson's sawmill operation. We waited months for a decision from the town stating that Gordon was allowed to operate. It appeared pretty clear to us laymen as we read the regulations that the sawmill operation was not permitted, but we hired an attorney to accurately interpret those regulations. And the attorney confirmed he was not permitted to be operating. So we appealed the decision. Through the appeal came the ruling from the DRB confirming that the regulations did not allow sawmills to operate in our zoning district. Gordon appealed that decision. Mm-hmm. He rescinded his appeal, and then he applied for the home industry permit, still trying to operate within the same zoning district, the Mount Mansfield Scenic Preservation Corridor. After that permit was denied, Gordon is now saying, I'm curious if there's a way to change or alter the definition of a sawmill. So he's asking the regulations to be changed so he can operate his business. He's continued to operate his sawmill despite the rulings from the DRB. And it just feels ridiculous that a change is being considered based on this one citizen's lack of prior planning, before starting his business. Mm-hmm. It feels especially ridiculous after the time, the money, the resources that we've spent interpreting the regulations. At the October 3rd meeting, I know one member of the commission had commented, this is not exact, but like, I wouldn't want a sawmill right next to my house. My family and I don't want this sawmill next to our house. We would not have purchased our home with a sawmill operating next to our house, 100 feet from our child's window. We've lived there happily since 2011, and, Gordon recently moved in and started business, and we have not enjoyed it quite so much. We don't want to listen to the sawmill right next to our house. There's towering piles of logs butted right up against our property line. He has unsafely unloaded the logs at times throughout this whole proceeding. The yard's smelling of diesel fuel as he's cutting. If the saw was running and my children were in the yard and I had to alert them about something, they wouldn't hear me because it's that loud. The current zoning regulations make sense. If someone is engaged in a logging project on their property, they should be able to temporarily have the portable sawmill to help process the wood. But that's a big difference between a portable sawmill being used for this small period of time and an ongoing sawmill operation going day after day right next to your house, processing logs that he's hauling in from other properties. That sort of operation has impact on properties in terms of noise, traffic, and dust as a permanent sawmill does. And the fact that it's portable and could be moved around doesn't make a difference.
Mhm.
When we bought our house, we chose to live in this area away from that sort of operation happening. And the zoning regulations gave us comfort that the character of the area would be one that we wanted to raise our family in. And we were really relieved and thankful when the DRB ruled. They stood by the regulations. It protected our quality of life and enjoyment of our property. We're just asking that the Planning Commission not pursue an amendment to the regulations due to a squeaky wheel. We relied on the zoning regulations to protect and maintain the character of the area, and changing the rules feels like grossly unfair, and undermining the faith in the consistency of the regulations of the town. And that's really all I wanted to say, but I do appreciate the time
Of course.
to be able to say that. So thank you.
Of course.
Hey, Russ Vogel, 611 Pleasant Valley Road. My wife, children, and I live right across the street from Heather and Nick. There's quite a bit of history to this, unfortunately, at this point, to what's going on with this whole sawmill situation. July of 22, Gordon's sawmill operation was suddenly set up right next to their house, directly across the street, 300 feet away from my front door.
Mhm.
And there it began. Sat back and not a word was said. No DRB came to us. Nothing official that should have been done. And it just started operating.
Mhm.
So sitting back wondering what was going on, just kind of seeing the situation, even though it wasn't neighborly not to consider it, either one of us, our homes, I just sat back and then saw it in spring 23, it just grow. And by August, I had had enough. I have a recording on my phone. I can play it. Now, I know it's not there at the moment anymore. It's now, he's moved it to his operation, but there's some history there that needs to be looked at. And I strongly encourage this planning commission to look at the May DRB meeting, watch it 3-4 times, and really take it in and things that are being said and going on.
So I got a question for you real quick. When you say history, you mean like enforcement history or?
No, just that there's a bigger picture to this that I hope is not getting missed.
So what, do you know
The
which May
situation.
DRB?
What was that?
Do you know
They
which?
probably only had one.
Oh, they probably had one.
Got it.
And along with this back and forth, there was another meeting that was August 19th.
We've all watched that
Yeah.
recording. I believe. That was the second DRB hearing.
May 6th
Yes.
was the first one.
Yeah.
May
okay.
6th and then August 19th.
Yeah.
Most,
And
I
then-
shouldn't say all of us,
Okay.
but we
I watched
said
it.
we were, I watched it.
I encourage you to watch that and listen carefully, because there's a lot of things being said. Kind of takes a minute to comprehend, the attitude and everything going on in the room. Anyway, but before all this happened, I went to the Tisberts and spoke with them and said, hey, this noise is bothering us. They're the landowners. They are the responsible parties. And we said, I said, can you possibly change this? And I believe that was September 28th that happened. Nothing whatsoever. I said, we'll talk about it. I said, why was this allowed to happen on your property right up against the houses, Can you move them down a couple hundred yards? Is that another part? Hey, great, make millions, we're happy, everybody's happy, and, going on, but nothing. So then it just progressed from there. Hiring an attorney, having to go through all this process, this expense to protect our homes. If this is something that's pursued and gone through, allowed, I can see a lot more situations, bad situations happening around town with more neighbors if it's, not right. I don't believe there should be any changes. It was pretty cut and dry what the rules were at the time, and this just seems like another avenue being pursued to try and, for Gordon to get his operation going, and it could possibly, if things change, be right back where it was. I would hope that wouldn't happen, but it's been a strain on our family dealing with this since then. Been a lot of comments made about, oh, we should accept noise. We live near the range and, freedom, and soldiers. I worked in aviation since 1988. I'm a 21-year jet engine mechanic. I know noise, a lot of it. I purchased my property in 2016 because of peace and quiet. Wasn't even sure I was going to buy here, but it was available, and I walked to the backyard. The river was going through it. Just felt at ease. So, just like Heather mentioned, I purchased my property because of the surroundings and the way it was. People have made comments about hearing the gunfire and stuff. I worked for General Dynamics and for 3 years at the firing range, right next to Gatling guns firing off. Worked on them actually. So I'm not unfamiliar with noise. But I walk away from that when I've done my job. And I come home and try and do this. As my wife stated, and we stated before, we homeschool. And it's completely interrupting that, when it was happening. Now, Gordon has moved his operation up to his house. It is, we could still hear it going on, even though the DRB said that it is not allowed to be happening. And, we've seen trucks leave full of firewood. Last I heard that the operation is going to be stopping October 15th for him to, shut down for the winter. But it's just, like I said, this seems like another avenue to get what he wants. And, I don't want my property value to drop because of this. Has been confirmed. I spoke with realtors about the situation. This whole situation should be disclosed to the potential buyers of the Johnson's house right next to me. Who knows who will, but that's the right thing to do. I question, who else is coming to the planning commission and saying, hey, we're all having this problem about, portable sawmills. Is it one?
Well, there's no,
I don't know. I don't know.
sometimes people run businesses that aren't legally, they don't have a permit for. And the only way that the zoning administrator might know about that is if the neighbor were to say something, bring in a complaint. And so he's violating he's in violation right now, right? Is that right?
I'm not sure what he's up to at the
'Cause,
moment.
I mean, right
so.
now, if it's in appeal, does he have to stop?
It's
It has passed the appeal
Yeah,
point.
it's not a deal.
Okay, he's not. So that means that he's in violation, right?
If he hasn't stopped sawing, I imagine so.
And you brought it and you come in and said something? Because there is a process. There is a,
We have been in communication since, I don't know how long with our attorney.
There's a, not to interrupt, I'm sorry. There's a catch here, Roy, which has nothing to do with their case. The catch would be that Brad Holden is stepping back from being a zoning administrator. So it's unclear to me who would enforce that. Right?
okay.
Which is a separate topic that we were going to talk about later in terms of hiring a new part-time zoning administrator, but I don't want to take us off track. My point only is, I don't know, and I'm not an expert on the enforcement rules of the town. I know nothing, frankly, but like, I think Brad not being the zoning administrator anymore has to have an effect on that situation.
But
Just
in the
my two
bylaws,
cents.
there is a process for it.
I think so.
For
It's a process,
complaint
but it
that you-
does go through the
ZA.
Yeah,
to
right,
the
so he
zoning
would be the one.
administrator / select board.
But Brad doesn't have that
And
job.
DRB may have some because they're the quasi judicial board. We have absolutely nothing. We're welcome to hear what's going on, but we are not.
Well, we don't deal with
We
individuals.
don't
Yeah,
deal
right.
with any
Yeah.
situation.
So it's the zoning administrator's
Yeah, we don't deal with-
It's
responsibility
the zoning administrator's responsibility to
enforce.
enforce any decisions.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And impose a fine that's, because in the bylaws, there is
Correct,
a
correct.
process.
Yeah.
And that would be with the town attorney and select board.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know how often the town enforces things.
But I mean,
Not very often.
But a citizen has to like make it aware, because we don't have people just driving around like looking for these things. You kind of have to bring it to our
I
attention.
understand.
No, the town's very
At the
aware.
very beginning
Well, I
of
know.
this, at the very beginning of this, beginning of August of '23, I came to the town, I spoke to Brad and said, hey, what's up with this firewood processing thing going on? It's awfully loud. It's my house, stuff like that, and bring awareness of it. And I was informed that the town doesn't go looking for problems. It has to be brought up.
Yeah,
It's
as
quite an
the,
obvious problem.
as the abutting neighbor, you should have been notified of any sort of meeting by the
There should have been a
DRB.
permit applied, and I believe
Should have
somebody
been a
here,
registered letter.
I'm sorry. I believe somebody here asked Gordon, did he apply for a permit maybe on the last planning commission or something? And he said, no, Brad told him he didn't need it. But there was no communication with us at all saying, hey, I'd like to do this, and no consideration in neighbors whatsoever.
Despite his comment that he did notify the neighbors, he did not notify my family.
And he did not notify,
So the crux here is bringing in logs from off his property. I think that's what makes it illegal, right? But he can cut wood that actually is from his own property.
Yeah, I think it was
That's
a miscommunication or misunderstanding of the code related to,
Misinterpretation of the state forestry.
so now they're like backpedaling it
Yeah.
back to zoning versus forestry things, which we don't have any control over.
So now he's
Right.
cutting wood up near his own house, is it? Or,
Yes.
yeah, so how is that objectionably noisy up there or to you?
I can hear it in my backyard.
Yeah, but just hearing it, I mean, is it objectionably, there's bound to be some noise in a neighborhood. And, people run chainsaws, people run lawnmowers. So how objectionable is it now with him cutting up near his house?
No,
Where does he live?
623, sorry, I think the Johnsons are 621. He's up across the bridge. behind me.
Well, there's
But
a-
David clarifying that
Yeah,
with that statement, it doesn't matter because
Yeah.
he could never have gotten a permit to operate that business in that district to begin with. So,
yeah, so.
You know what I mean?
Do you need a permit for cutting wood on your own property?
What do you mean by cutting wood on your own property?
for yourself,
You
Yeah.
for yourself or for other people?
Well,
as a business that you're selling, as a
Yeah, if you're selling it.
home business.
Yeah,
Home business.
right.
The area where I feel like this gets, I feel like we're lurching into the discussion a little bit versus the public comment, which is fine because we moved it up. So, but please interject. The area Brad mentioned to me was where he thought it got tricky and maybe the rules are a little gray. Is like, let's say, to use like clearest example you could think of to make it murky, no pun intended. Let's say you had a maple sugar operation at your place, David, and you burned a lot of wood because you were boiling with wood. So more than you would ever use to heat your house. Let's say you burned 25 cords sugar, and you were bringing in wood, and you brought in a portable sawmill to cut the wood, and the only thing you were doing with it is boiling sap for your own maple sugar operation. The question, that's like the grayest area. Brad pointed out to me, and we can discuss that. But like, I think Brad was trying to find the grayest example. Like, you're not cutting wood for anyone else. It's just for you. And you're cutting a ton of it. So the best example you can think of was boiling sap. So, yeah, I don't mean to make your question, but that's sort of where it gets. Is it for you or is it for someone else, right? Like, you could come up with a thing where you use a lot of wood, but it's just for you.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. Maybe, maybe we shouldn't be wading in on details here. I don't know.
No, well, we ultimately have to discuss it. So I do want to, before we keep discussing those, sorry, I know Nick is online. Did he want to make any comments as well in the public comment, or is it all in your statement?
I think I covered everything that
Okay.
I wanted to.
Okay. So I guess on our section of, first of all, thank you for sharing all that. I know it's been a stressful situation. So I guess we were scheduled to talk about sawmills. We were going to talk about, I think, just what everyone was thinking, really, not to be too less clear about it. But I know Bart had something that he had found in the state regs, which I could try to pull up online that you wanted to talk about, because I didn't want to print it because it's too long. And I'm sure other people might have thoughts, but I have one question for you all, and you're welcome not to answer because I know you're a lawyer, and so maybe you don't want to answer, but which is fine. The interesting thing for me is, like, in theory, because I talked to Charlie Van Winkle too, and I talked to Brad, and the idea, like, in theory, is there a distance and noise level? Like, let's say this all started off, and Gordon just came to you and he was like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. So none of the history, right? Like, is there, just as residents of Underhill, I'm curious because you're here, do you think there's a distance and noise level under which having a sawmill in a residential district is okay? Like, just to pick a big number, 2,000 feet and doesn't exceed X from the nearest residence? Or is it your position that sawmills just should not be allowed in residential districts in Underhill? Like, it should be as is. And if you don't want to answer that, I totally understand. So.
I can't answer as to whether it should be, I guess, as is.
Yeah.
It would depend on the circumstances.
Yep.
There are a whole lot of variables about sound.
Yep.
Yeah.
Temperature,
The way it moves.
distance, elevation. I mean, you name it.
Yep.
There are zoning laws out there about, or the noise ordinances, sorry.
Yeah.
Already defined. Have that in place.
Yeah. Our nuisance ordinance, basically.
Right.
Yep.
Nuisance ordinance. And, they're there. At my front door, I was reading 80 decibels when the saw hit the logs at the time. And, you know, when it was 300 feet away,
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty loud.
Mm-hmm.
Colder temperatures just make it worse, the way it travels. I would say it would have to be measured. That's what I would expect with a situation like that there'd be a permit, the DRB would come, there'd be sound readings taken with calibrated instrumentation by a third party.
Yep.
You know, I know there's mention about sound readings from a decibel meter that was from the town, and I really question that's calibration. But it should be by a third party or something during a process like that. If, you know, whenever somebody's going to do something,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the whole thing here is that the planning never happened.
Right.
The thoughtfulness, the thinking things out never happened. You know, if you're going to have any business, you have to think, is this the right spot for it? And you have to consider there's all kinds of things, environmental, you know, location. You know, you don't put a convenience store or gas station at the end of a dead end street. You know, things were not planned out, thought of, and neighbors even cared about.
Mm-hmm.
But as for the location and distance and stuff, I would just say with the noise.
Yep.
You have zoning laws already, or nuisance ordinances already that define those.
Okay.
I was just going to say quickly, you know, the regulations were thoughtfully written. It's not something that I'm sure just haphazardly was pieced together. A lot of thought was put into that, and effort and time as well.
Mhm.
And I'm going to come back to that. They're being asked to be changed because of his lack of planning for his business. That doesn't seem okay.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, that does not seem okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like the reason for the change, whether I had a distance that seemed appropriate or not, that's not the issue. I have, it's that he's asking because he didn't think about that first.
Got it.
So it doesn't feel right to change it at
Got
this point for that reason.
Well, I don't know if we're changing it. Well, I know we're not changing it specifically for Gordon. What we're trying to do is clarify some things so that we don't run into this again in another situation, get more detailed on certain things, defining things a little better so that we can clarify. So we don't have to discuss like, is this a sawmill? Is this a log splitting operation? What, like clearly defining these different things so that we can, I guess, eliminate these frustrations if and when somebody else down the road does it. So
I
Just
did
to
hear
make
you
you
say
feel
that at
better.
the other meeting.
yeah,
I
it's
did hear
not for
you.
Gordon,
Yeah.
it's for like clarity of the overall.
For me, the for confusion is that it's not actually, I wouldn't consider it a sawmill, okay? It's a wood processing mill. And that would have to be treated as a home, like thinking about it as a home business, which he could, if he treated it that way, to me, and I'm looking for everybody else to chime in on this, because this is how I understand it. He could probably apply for a permit for a home business if some lawyer or somebody said, that's not a sawmill, it's a wood processing mill. So to me, what we need to do is to have a separate line on our chart here and a separate bylaw for wood processing businesses, because it's very similar to a sawmill, but it's,
And just to make sure that all the criteria are met, like
yeah.
you can come in anywhere and say, I have an idea to do this. But if you put it against a checklist, you're like, well, I don't meet these things, then your idea is no longer valid. So it's just trying to get a definition, a clear checklist of what you have to adhere to under that definition. And then if all that works, then, you know, it's plausible. If it, I mean, obviously it still goes to DRB,
Yeah,
it still goes to, you know, community reach, you know, meetings and stuff, but right now it is kind of vague in terms of this specific incident. It could become vague for another incident down the road.
Well, also muddying it is, it's not his property, it's the Tisbers. And what sort of
That's it.
property?
How can you have a home business on somebody else's
And,
property?
and the
Is that-
Tisbers, are they in land, current use? What are they in? Aren't they, isn't it a land trust property too? That's a whole nother complication that could further muddy it. Regardless what the Tisbers real, conditional use. And I think it's the Vermont Land Trust that they're in. I don't really remember, but Gordon is not a Tisber.
Right.
So it's already on somebody else's property, so it's not their home occupation. So I don't understand how to even,
So is he renting on the property or?
I'm not sure.
it has to be, whatever that he's doing, it's on their
He entered
property.
into some sort of agreement with them, but
Yeah.
I don't.
In January, there was, we discovered that there was a land management agreement after all this started, signed with them.
So, just an open question to the planning commission. Is this something where people, did you want to go through this stuff you sent me today, Bart, or do people want to watch are people interested in watching the May 24 DRB meeting and circling back on it next meeting, or what's the concern?
I don't need to talk about mine today.
Okay.
I can put it back.
Okay. Then,
Is that, so, I'm sorry, Bart, is that something that you got, that the state, is this,
it's a Vermont
Vermont
statute.
statutes online.
okay,
It's about working lands, right?
okay.
So we'll block out time for this in the next meeting. I'll make it the first item. I guess I would ask everyone to watch the May 24 DRB meeting, like we watched the other one, please. Feels like the threshold issue is, I don't know if I'm thinking about this right. It feels like the threshold issue is because I heard maybe Roy say wood processing
Versus
maybe
sawmill.
not being the same as a sawmill. I feel like that's sort of the threshold issue we need to discuss,
I think,
because I'm not sure that you all would agree with that. So that, I think that's the crux of the
well, there's two answers.
disagreement in
There's-
some ways. And then the
Yeah.
second one then is if you are gonna say wood processing is different than a sawmill, then you need to start to get into how do you make it so it works for everybody.
Right.
But I think I'm thinking about.
And where it's allowed with districts of,
And what
It's
districts
allowed.
it's allowed, and if you did break wood processing out from a sawmill, where's it even allowed? Yeah.
and then it'll be allowed probably under a conditional use permit wherever we say it's allowed. And therefore, whoever wants to apply for a permit to do that, they have to go through the whole process, bringing the neighbors in and getting input, doing the sound, the decibel rating for where it's going to be and all that. So it's not like, it's not like a home run for something. Oh, yeah, it's allowed in my district. I can get a permit for it. It wouldn't be that way. I guess is how I would see it, right? Is that,
Well,
Well,
I think, yeah,
I think
go ahead.
specifically, there's two issues too, like there's Gordon specific, and then there's just wood processing as a whole that we need to tackle to handle his problem and.
I don't
future
think,
problems. No.
I agree with that, but I really don't know, and please tell me if folks disagree. I feel like Gordon specific, that's the DRB. That's not our job.
Well, it is, yeah.
Like, our job is to think about,
Why
if
do
I
I-
understand our job correctly, our job is to think about, just planning for the town. I mean, we're
Yeah.
not like we're
I just wanna
ignoring
put them
the
at ease
facts
that
of
we're
the
not-
situation. Yeah.
That we're not doing things to give
No,
Gordon
no.
a avenue in, we're
I
just
see
trying
what
to,
Yeah.
Yeah,
make sure it doesn't happen again.
yeah.
And then there's real
But-
clear
If to see
definitions.
see both sides of the argument, there's compelling arguments on both sides, like it's not an easy,
Right.
home run. I mean, I think we've all personally had experiences with loud, obnoxious neighbors in our history, or life histories, so we know that, but then there's also a balance of work life that has to be met in today's day where people do a lot of work from home, whether it's an industry or behind a computer, so.
Right.
It's tough.
Okay, so I think that if everyone's good with that, maybe next meeting, we'll start with this. Go around please everyone watch May 24 if you can, and then we'll just go around the table and maybe talk about how each person's thinking about That's just big picture.
Yeah.
And you all are obviously welcome to attend as many planning commission meetings as you want, or you can watch the recording.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot of documentation with this too.
Yep.
There's probably not as much as we see.
Original complaints, the timelines, a lot of stuff to it. It's worth a look.
I know most of us, again, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I know at least most of us watched the second DRB hearing. We'll watch the first DRB hearing to educate ourselves and then get anything else we need. So,
Thank you so much.
no, thank you
Really
both.
appreciate it.
Thank you for coming in. Thank you, Nick, for joining online.
Thank
All right, yeah, thank you. Okay, that takes us to David Edson. Any news?
Okay. Okay, do you have copies of the,
Oh, wait, no, I handed out. I didn't hand it out.
okay.
Bless you.
Thanks.
Oh, I didn't get the minutes from last meeting, so,
Does she literally type them, or is there some like smart thing that like?
no, she
compiles-
types them.
Oh my gosh.
transcribes them.
So
Yeah,
much.
Donna's a rock star.
There's no AI doing that yet?
No,
ChatGPT?
Donna. Yeah, it's Donna.
Jeez, man. Feel bad for her.
She's great.
I'm sure she is, but I feel bad she has to.
David, do you have one?
Type
Yeah, I
out.
have a copy.
So,
Okay, starting with the accessory structures, it's a separate category, so it doesn't really belong under the multi-use. We go back to page 69, right at the beginning of Article 4. And begin with inserting this accessory structures as section 4.2. And the rest would all be renumbered after it. And so they're also listed through here alphabetically, so that's kind of how we're following the placement of these things. So on accessory structures, I thought, well, it's probably a good idea to just have this as a separate category here, just to clarify and make sure that people understand that accessory structures are different from an accessory dwelling unit. And Sandy brought in the agricultural aspect of accessory structures, so I included under A, accessory structures shown to be included in a farm determination by the Vermont Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets do not need a permit, but are required prior to construction to notify the zoning administrator in writing of the proposed construction, including a sketch plan showing required setbacks. I thought that's important to include there.
David, I'm
Any
sorry to ask
questions
a dumb
about that?
question, but I
Yes.
feel like maybe my pages are not numbered identical to yours, and I peeked over Boris's shoulder, and his is the same as mine. Where would
Huh?
this section
Section
4.2 go?
4.2.
He's adding it and then adaptive reuse,
Page-
4.3, and
Page 69.
Oh,
so
I see.
yeah, so it's becoming 4.2, the net 4.2.
I think what we would do, David, if it's okay with you, this is a minor point, but I think we would make it, well, I guess the lawyer could do all that. If we renumbered all those sections and then they're cross-referenced in other places, that would be a lot of work.
Well, we have
What
to
if
keep
we
things
just make it
consistent.
section 4.20? What do you
I
think
don't know.
about
I
that?
think, well, I don't know. We're going to be going through this thing with all that kind of detail anyway. You just have to make things consistent, I think.
All right, well, we'll leave that in open.
Anyway, okay, leave that
We'll
as a
return to
present, but this is presented as trying to keep things consistent from the beginning to end.
Okay.
Okay, so, part A of that, any questions on that? This is just allowing the agricultural definition through the farm determination.
Is farm determination a defined term in this document?
It's the term, it's the legal term actually
Okay.
that refers back to what the state of Vermont
Says you're a farm.
has, basically.
Okay.
They make a farm determination, basically. And you have to fulfill a number of elements
Okay,
for it to be classified under them as a determination of the farm.
okay.
Okay? So, so I'm saying there, they don't need a permit, but are required to notify blah, 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 blah. Well, right at the beginning, they say the accessory structure is shown to be included. So you've got to bring something in from the state.
Yep.
It's got to be, you've got to show that the state has determined that you're a farm. And then you have to have a sketch plan and showing where accessory structures are.
Yep.
The accessory structures would be part of the farm determination. So the person isn't coming in later on and just adding a structure and saying, well, this is part of the farm determination. No, it's not, unless it's with that farm determination outlined from the state.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Any questions on that?
No.
Look okay?
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
That's good. Sounds good.
Okay. B, one or more accessory structures not included in a farm determination as described in A, 1, which are located within, or possibly a number of feet, whatever, of the principal structure as measured from the closest point. We've been through this. Do you want me to? Any questions? Yes?
What is B saying, David?
Okay, B. This is where a permit is necessary.
Oh, so does it need a word or something? Where B said, what should B say, like one or more accessory structures not included in the farm definition as described in A? That's not it. Do you need a permit or something like that?
Well,
I think read B,
on.
I don't understand.
Number 1.
Yeah.
Well, you get a straight permit or, I'm suggesting also, and this is new, suggesting a conditional permit if a accessory structure is proposed that's outside the perimeter of feet that we're setting up.
Yeah, I'm wondering, I knew where you're going with it. I'm just wondering in B if it needs to say like one or more accessory structures not included in a farm determination as described in A, like may be issued a permit provided or something like that.
Well, I got away with that because it got a little bit, I don't know, it sounded confusing, mixing the permit and conditional permit
Okay.
in one. So, all right, 1, which are located within blah, blah, feet of the principal structure as measured from the closest point of the principal structure to the farthest point of the accessory structure is allowed as a permitted use, subject to the issuance of a zoning permit by the zoning administrator. That seems to be the language.
Mm-hmm.
So that's permit. 2, which are located outside the perimeter described in B1, may be allowed as a permitted use subject to conditional use approval by the Development Review Board under section 5.4. That's the kind of language they use. And I think it's important to allow a conditional use because there are some situations where outside the foot parameters that we set may be necessary or desirable. Like for instance, the Laytons, there's a shed on the other side of the brook that was used to hold hay and so on, because that's where the farm animals were. And it would have been really inconvenient to have that on the house side of the brook.
Mm-hmm.
And within a certain number of feet. So I think allowing a conditional permit for this, where it's clearly desirable, is a good idea. The objectionableness of a conditional permit should discourage most people from, going through the process if they can fit it in comfortably within the parameters.
Mm-hmm.
I got a question for you.
Sure.
So just to clarify this,
Yep.
does that
which is that setback that we came up with, whatever it was, had to be like an accessory. I thought we were talking about accessory dwelling units when we had a distance from the primary residence. We came
Well,
up with
that's-
300 feet or
You're
something.
confusing it, going back into the old confusion, basically, of
Yeah.
the accessory dwelling and the accessory structure. An accessory dwelling can go into an accessory structure. And so we get into that on the next
Okay,
section.
so,
Could you be thinking of this, Roy? Like on the next page, it says if the ADU is within an accessory structure, then it has to follow the regulatory setbacks for accessory structures. So either the ADU is in the house or it's in a separate building. If it's a separate building, then it's in an accessory structure, and then you have to follow the regular setbacks for an accessory structure.
Right, yeah,
That's
yeah,
what David.
yeah.
Okay.
How's it,
gotcha.
how's an ADU in the house?
In the
You
garage.
could put it in the house, like your garage, above your garage.
Basement apartment.
It could be an ADU.
So you're converting a non-livable space to a livable space of your existing building?
Yeah.
Or existing house?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because maybe you only had a 3-bedroom house and you can add another 2 bedrooms above the garage for your ADU.
So that's still considered an ADU?
Yep,
Not
it's just
considered
attached.
an addition to your house?
You could
build an addition to the house,
that.
and it
Oh,
could
so
have
if
an
you have like
ADU
a-
in it. It could be a garage and.
So you
an
get an attic
accessory garage.
space and now it becomes a living space?
Right.
That's an ADU?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think the advantage of the ADU is we can't tell you no.
Okay.
As a town.
So here's a question. I don't want to confuse that question.
But having said that.
So if you're building an accessory dwelling unit in the upstairs and you're adding a garage onto your house,
Yeah.
then the house all of a sudden becomes, too close to the property line for a primary residence. But would that ADU
Yeah.
be allowed using the ADU setback on the sideline, which is less? Does everybody follow my question?
No, I just call that
You meant-
TI
no,
and
you
then we
meant-
just move on.
You meant the structure is closer.
Wait, so you attach
You
an
meant the
ADU to
structure.
your house?
Yeah. And for an ADU, the setbacks are
But isn't that an
less.
addition?
But you just put it in the
No.
primary residence. You're not subject to the accessory structure.
Yeah, right.
So
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
still
yeah.
stuck with the primary residence.
Okay.
Alright.
Primary residence setbacks.
That's what I would,
Okay, got it.
that's what I would, yeah.
Yeah, I would say that too. Okay, thank you.
We're gonna need like
No.
a panel.
I know, I just feel like we use so many words that like I've never really kind of used or heard before
Yeah.
until I moved here. So I'm like, what is
Yeah,
all
it's
this
a little
stuff?
bit-
What is this appurtenant? Like,
We got rid of a pertinent.
Yeah,
I know.
right?
For real.
But I found
The
it
lawyers
in
here was
used
looking at
elsewhere.
putting it up on the computer when David was using it.
Well, me too. I was Googling, what is appurtenant? I don't know what he's talking
Do you
about.
remember that?
Yeah.
I need to clarify what a pertinent means. I've no freaking
It is. It is elsewhere. It was already in the regs here, in a
Somebody
different
pulled
place.
a source on that day. I was like, let's use appurtenant.
So does anyone have any questions on accessory structure?
No.
Not ADUs, okay.
Okay, we'll go on.
Wait, you're prison, David.
Okay.
Don't get cocky though.
I just.
Okay. Okay, page 90, go flip up to page 90. And in the title there, the title says multi-dwelling structures, parenthesis, accessory dwellings, two-family dwellings, and multi-family dwellings. So I want to change accessory dwellings to accessory dwelling units. It helps to avoid the confusion. When you say an accessory dwelling, people automatically think of a structure. And that's been a problem ongoing, basically. So if we call it accessory dwelling units, it helps to separate the idea. It's a little clearer that way.
I think so.
Any questions about that? Very simple little thing. Okay. Okay. So now we continue. Accessory A, accessory dwelling unit. In accordance with 24 VSA 4412, one accessory dwelling unit located within or attached to a principal single-family dwelling or within a structure accessory to the principal single-family dwelling is allowed as a permitted use subject to the issuance of a zoning permit by the zoning administrator under section blah, blah, blah. So, using that language again. So we've been through the 1 through 5. I just want to point out that number 1 says the same review, this is for an accessory dwelling unit, have to follow these requirements. The same review, dimensional or other controls as required for a single family dwelling unit with one exception noted below in 5. Go down to 5. If the accessory dwelling unit is to be within an accessory structure, all of the above is required except the regulatory setbacks for accessory structures apply. Got it?
Yeah,
Okay,
that's good.
okay.
Which are less restrictive.
Right.
They're less restrictive. It's closer to the borders.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and we've been through the rest of those there. I can read them if you'd like to go over them again. But when we talk about, a family member must occupy the dwellings, someone dies or they have to move away, they can get an extension of them not having to waive the extension, the occupancy. And sufficient water and so on. And then the accessory dwelling unit does not exceed 30% of total habitable floor area of the principal single family dwelling or 1,000 square feet, whichever is greater. Okay. No questions on that?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So down to B. We're doing this alphabetically, basically, the way they have been doing it, except for the last one, which is additional requirements, and obviously that's has to be last. Non-conforming structure accessory to the principal single-family dwelling. So, an accessory dwelling unit in an existing or proposed accessory structure in non-conformance with district setback regulations may be allowed as a permitted use subject to conditional use review and so on. So that's a conditional use there. Any questions on that?
Nope.
Okay. Shared driveway and parking. And that's just been, we've been carrying that through as it was written pretty much. Any questions on that? It's just carrying through basically. Single family dwelling conversion to accessory dwelling unit. An existing principal single family dwelling may be converted to an accessory dwelling unit as part of a single permit or a new principal single family dwelling if compliant with B accessory dwelling unit. Is that clear? Clear? Any questions?
So,
This is
So I
you've
just
got a
got it.
small house on your property, basically, and you want to convert that to an accessory dwelling unit and build a bigger house. You can do that with a single permit. Like me, I've
so,
got a really small house, basically, small living quarters, and and it's just nonsense to try and build an accessory to that, which would be 10 feet, 20 feet, or whatever, So that could be converted to an accessory dwelling unit, and a larger primary structure could be built on the property.
so does the accessory dwelling unit has to be, you can't, like, less than 1,000 feet?
Yeah, that was that number 4.
A
So
thousand, yeah, 30.
you can't have like a 5,000 square foot house, convert it to an ADU and build a 10,000 square foot house.
Right.
Yeah, right.
But we had changed that 1,000 square feet or 50%,
No, it's a 30%.
or
It
30.
says
Okay.
right here, yeah, it's number 4. Accessory dwelling unit does not exceed 30% of the total habitable floor area of the principal single-family dwelling or 1,000 square feet.
Okay.
Whichever
Yeah.
is
Okay,
greater.
I just,
Yeah.
want- yeah, got it.
30% basically, so if you got a, 50,000 square foot house or something.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. And then a conditional use for having a accessory structure farther away than what we're gonna end up with the fee. Because we might want a gatehouse down by the road, basically, for a house that's way up on the mountain somewhere. So they'd need a conditional use really for that.
Because it would exceed the distance between the two
Yeah, right,
units.
yeah.
I think this all goes back to when we were originally talking about it, like you should,
Mhm.
if you have to live with it, then it'll keep people from doing crazy stuff, right?
Mhm.
Like having it within X feet of your dwelling, like, wasn't that our original thinking? If I remember
Yeah,
correctly?
400 square feet or whatever, basically. Yeah.
Well, now they had, I mean, I was the only one against that idea because I thought it limited some people with large pieces of land that wanted to have an ADU, but now they can go to the DRB and get a conditional use permit, put it
Right.
farther away than whatever the 350
Right.
feet that we.
It's just not automatic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes,
if somebody has a 1,200 square foot home
yeah,
and they're comfortable with it
yeah.
and they want an ADU.
Yep.
Could they build another 1,200 foot home?
No, it's 1,000 square feet or 30%, whichever is greater.
Yeah.
You're stuck with a small one. It's not really fair, but we were following the state's rules.
Yeah.
I think it's
I think that,
not really very fair.
well, I think we're a little more liberal than the state is.
Yeah, no, my only point is that the way the state rule is written, like,
Yeah,
it's triggered off the size of your primary residence. So like if you have a massive mansion in Stowe, then your ADU can be a lot bigger and then
yeah.
totally others.
So if you got I wonder, that's an interesting question though. If you've got a small house, say your house is 1,100 square feet,
Yeah.
then you can put on a 1,000 square foot ADU. I guess you can.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Or it could be 1,001 square feet and the ADU 1,000 square feet.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
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 Right.
But
Or it could be 750 square feet and the ADU is 1,000 square foot, but that then becomes your
Primary.
primary
Yeah,
residence.
right.
Yeah.
Then
Then you flip them.
right.
I think that covers all the bases.
So,
So wait, what
Okay.
number are we putting in this blank for feet? You just said 350 feet. Did we actually decide on?
Yeah, are we
number?
determining that now, or is that why that's left?
we left it blank because we
I
were
can't
thinking,
remember where we were.
well, we didn't really come to a firm conclusion, and I think we left it open to discussion when we have the public in.
Got it. Okay.
If that's still agreeable, or
Yeah, we'll have to decide.
we might have some suggestions for the public anyway. I'm in favor of 400 square feet.
Yeah, I can't remember where we were anymore.
Yeah.
Does
I
anyone
thought we
remember
came
what
up with some number like 385.
Come on, did we really? That sounds very precise. It sounds like we really.
391 and a half.
Is that the same as like, who are these guys? Is that what you're throwing at us right now?
Well, one thing we could do, I think,
Yeah.
so does anyone have any questions about ADU?
No, I think that's.
No, man.
I
I think we need to go to the tavern tonight.
Well, maybe I would ask this, for an item, an agenda item for our next meeting, which has nothing to do with David's work. David's work is done. But do people want to think about a number to put in that blank as a suggestion to the public? How many feet?
I think 386 is, we'll go 386.
I don't know, you're 385 from Roy.
Zero number, no number.
Price is
No,
right, I'm just putting
I think
one
that-
more about it.
I just think that that's just an unreasonable thing
So
in some situations.
So if I remember the reason for the number in the first place, as I remember it, it was to prevent somebody from building an ADU like a big party house where they can
Yes.
just rent out.
Right
That's
next
my
to their
other
neighbor.
And it's not close, they don't hear the noise, but their neighbor hears it.
Like if you have to live with it, then how bad could it?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
If you get an
That's-
Airbnb, that's,
so that's the genesis of this number, right?
Yep.
Right, yep.
Okay.
Yes.
So unless anyone objects, and you could come back next meeting and say, I don't think we should fill it in.
Let's
Maybe-
fill it in now.
Oh,
Why don't we
you want to do it? All right,
Yeah.
Roy, we already know Roy.
Yeah,
We know Roy doesn't
I
want to
don't
fill it.
want it.
Infinity, Roy wants it.
So, yeah,
Infinity.
Roy wants infinity.
I want
Infinity. Your ADU could be in Berlin.
I think we should be pretty liberal on it, because, the way properties are in Underhill, I mean, I think we should. I think
So
we
you
should be
said
pretty
400.
liberal. Yeah, I did, I said
Let
400.
me write these down. Bart, David went out of order. 400. I've got two for 400. Carolyn.
400.
Oh my God, I'm feeling it. Well, Jeff was at 385.
well, I'm gonna go 401.
Are you willing? Are you willing?
Yeah, 401.
Can I talk you into 400?
We'll see where
Boris.
Boris lands.
Okay, 400.
All right.
Roy.
I'll say 400.
Oh my God.
I'm not gonna win. I'm not gonna get my
Amazing.
way.
400 is pretty generous. Okay, all right, David, I mean, I hate to say this, you're gonna have to break up with ADUs.
You get the rest of your now. We can do some evenings now.
Okay, thanks, all kidding aside, thank you, David, that was
Yeah,
a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah. Now, I can throw all these other ones away, right?
Throw all the other
yes.
drafts out that I
Yeah.
made, yeah.
That takes us to the PZA update, which I gave a little preview on during Sawmills, but essentially, the select board asked Charlie and I to come to the last select board meeting. And the net of all of this was Brad is super busy and he's just trying to do too much. And Brad is gonna step back from doing anything with the PZA work. So what that means for planning commission is like, planning commission has to administer all their own stuff. What that means for the DRB is they need to sort of administer all their own stuff. So they have kind of like a new administrative burden, because they're supposed to mail notices, if like there's a hearing to all of the abutting neighbors and blah, blah, blah. So that affects them in that way. I don't think it has any effect on us really at the exact moment. Brad's not really doing much with us. But the good part about this and what I'm telling you is the select board is hot to trot on hiring a planning person now. And what they're thinking of doing is doing a part-time zoning person and a part-time planning person.
Why is that?
I don't know if I 100% agree with it either, but that's what they're thinking about.
What,
They don't
they're
have to
it's
pay
too
on
much work?
benefits, probably.
They didn't say that. If they were thinking that, they didn't say it out loud. I think it was sort of presented as they're two different skill sets and it might be easier to find two different people, but yeah, I don't know if it's gonna be easier to hire that two people or easier to hire one person to do both. I'm pretty agnostic on it, but that's the thing that they were talking about. So they're gonna put out an ad and the select board's kind of taking over the process. So they were gonna put out an ad for these jobs. I don't know if they're gonna do like one for combined and one separate or, so anyway, the good news for us is they seem hot to trot on it. So hopefully we're gonna actually hire a zoning administrator. If anyone knows anyone who wants a part-time job as a zoning administrator for 20 hours a week or something, let me know. But that's the update.
What's the pay? 150
It's
grand.
probably
a year,
negotiable.
right?
How much? 150 grand a year is that what you said? You'll have to talk to the select board about that. I don't feel good about your chances.
I know what the full-time position was, so probably not.
I just got a new Microsoft computer, which has the nice editing program. for,
Oh.
Microsoft and
Yeah.
this kind of stuff.
Are you putting your hand up for part-time?
Yeah.
I might try to do some stuff. I'm not gonna commit to anything at this point. But,
Yeah, well, if anyone is interested in it, yeah, they want to hire someone. So what I'm going to commit to is following up with Patty seems to be leading the effort on the select board. So I'm going to follow up with Patty in like a week and see where we are, because it would be really good to get a planning person in. So.
So who issues building permits?
Well, this was, I mean, we're obviously out of my area of expertise now, but this was an explicit part of the discussion. Like, how are they gonna do that? And they're working through it. Because, yeah, someone has to, if you walk in for a permit for your deck, someone's got to issue it.
Yeah.
So they were
right down.
they were coming up with a plan. I wasn't,
Brad was doing.
yeah, Brad was doing it.
Oh.
So I sort of left the conversation at that point because it's not my purview, but I know they were working through it. So, yeah. I think they were a little less worried about it because they just get less permit requests in the winter. But yeah, I mean, someone could walk in and say they want to build a deck tomorrow, right? But yeah, they're aware of that.
And I'm just curious about why they wouldn't want one person for both jobs. It seems like it's.
I don't know. That was the consensus. I'm probably the outlier in that I was like, I
Well,
don't
at one
care.
point, weren't they talking about sharing it with Westford and somebody else? So is that a possibility?
That
still?
idea seems to have
Have
gone
gone
away,
away.
just in the sense that it's more complex.
Yeah,
And they
it
were
is.
also talking to, as I mentioned before, so I connected Patty to Kale of, our emeritus planning commission member, who, at Vermont League of Cities and Towns, and Patty was gonna talk to him about the idea of getting someone where they like work for VLCT or CRPC and they like give 10 hours a week to us and we pay them for that. Or so Patty was working through all that. She was taking the lead on that. So
Good.
I made the email and to Kale, and that's what she asked me to do. So I'll follow up with her in like a week, so I can have an update from you. So that's the deal on that.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah, well, I just showed up. That takes us to event venues, and we may be able to knock this out tonight too. Oh, one random item, I'm jumping way ahead here, but I have a proposal for the planning commission. I was looking at the calendar, so we have a choice, not to jump too far ahead, but it is only 4 meetings ahead, holiday.
Holiday
So-
party.
We have, let's talk, that's exactly what I'm going with.
I'll organize.
Before I get to that. So November, our meetings are on the 7th, that's not really a conflict with the holidays.
Right.
And the 21st, which really isn't a conflict with the holiday, because Thanksgiving's the next week.
Right.
But I did want to at least ask, does anyone have an issue with the meeting on the 21st? Because you're like, a bunch of people are going out of town. I said,
No.
okay. That takes it to December 5th, whatever. But to pick up on Roy's comment, because great minds think alike.
Yeah.
We could either have a meeting on December 19th,
No.
or a better idea.
Yeah.
Because I thought the last one was really fun, would be to have a holiday party. And
Yeah.
skip the December 19th meeting, and everyone could do like we did last time, right? You bring some snacks and drinks.
Yeah.
Is anyone opposed to
Sure.
that?
Is it recorded?
It's not recorded.
So, yeah, that sounds great.
Okay, cool, let's do that.
Help the transcription job.
So we will skip the December 19th meeting and do a holiday party. And we can devote some time on our December 5th meeting to planning for the party. Okay. All right, that takes us to event venues, which I have this. Actually, can you just pass some of this? That's probably too many.
It's just one page, right?
Yeah, it's just one page. So, oh, sorry, they're not. Oh, there you go. Got it. Jeff, beat you to it.
Everybody have one? There we go.
So those are just recycling.
Okay.
So I think I have, the only, you can see I blacklined or redlined it for the changes.
Thanks.
Let's start with C actually, because B is the one where I need everyone's help.
Mhm.
So B is the changes to refer to the nuisance ordinance. So you can see for noise, I crossed out what we had and now it just says noise, including without limitation, music or voices is unreasonable when it exceeds the noise level set forth in section 4A titled excessive noise of the town of Underhill nuisance ordinance. And as you all probably remember, the nuisance ordinance says that it has a chart with hertz and decibels that we would refer to. So basically, your event can't be more than 6 hours. It can't begin before 9 or end after 11, including setup and teardown. And you can't have unreasonable noise. Unreasonable noise is the noise ordinance in the noise section of the nuisance ordinance. I feel like that's what we talked about. Does anyone disagree with that?
Yeah.
The harder part is B. So, like I was using the harvest market as an example in my head. Someone brought it up, maybe Steve. I get how we might want to carve out like a big street fest or something like that, but I couldn't. I'm not saying I disagree with it. But when I was thinking through it, I was struggling with why we would just kind of like exclude all not-for-profit events. Because like, what if I have a charity and I throw a big bash and I'm like super annoying, and I'm at 3 times the noise level, and it goes till 1 a.m. Like the fact I was raising money for a charity or a church, like, does that really matter? I mean, the point of it's not to be annoying,
Right.
So,
I mean,
Yeah.
that's kind of my approach on that too. Like, just because they're a nonprofit doesn't mean that they're not good stewards or good,
right.
neighbors.
Right.
So that's, I mean, if you want to have a once a year bash like the harvest market, that's cool. But if you want to do that every weekend,
Right.
I think everyone would get annoyed with that very, really fast.
And I think like the one thing I was thinking about, like harvest market, they probably start setting up before 9, right? Like super early. But it's not like the setup's gonna violate the noise.
They set up several
levels.
days in advance.
Yeah, and they're always, and the noise levels of like setting up a tent are not gonna violate the nuisance ordinance anyway.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I was struggling with whether we needed to do anything for not-for-profits. I just couldn't,
I don't know. I think everyone should just be under the same tent. Yeah.
Mhm.
That's my opinion.
Does anyone have any other, we don't have to decide on this tonight, people can take this home and think about it, but this is, I know it's kind of short, but sort of intentionally so. I feel like it's pretty general.
I mean, it's more than what we got.
So, yeah, with
Today,
just
right?
Zippo.
Right.
So, do people like this? Do you want to take it home and circle back on it next meeting?
Looks good.
Which is fine.
So would you think that like, I mean, moving forward, right? Like this gets adopted today, next year's harvest market. Does what they do violate any of this, or does that not matter?
I don't think so. Let's.
The only thing I'm worried about is standards. Any single event shall not exceed 6 hours in duration. That seems like
Oh,
because that's like I mean, that starts from like,
yeah.
so what, 8 or
That
10
seems-
hours, right?
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's.
Well, the 6 hour thing was
We're thinking
mainly to
about
make,
weddings.
yeah, making sure it doesn't go to like 2, 3 in the morning, but maybe just
It
the
just-
time is.
It has to be
good enough.
ongoing though, right? It has to be, it's not, harvest market's a one-shot thing, once a year. That doesn't-
Yeah.
Just so that it has.
Well, yeah.
And they're grandfathered anyway, right?
But that's-
I mean,
yeah,
you think
nobody's
about
gonna-
that, that's,
Hopefully nobody's gonna use.
No.
I just want to make sure like there isn't that weird loophole where somebody.
What would we do about that?
More than once, one event a month, it says, right? So.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Oh,
This
yeah.
section wouldn't even apply to them.
Yeah, because it's just, this is more for, like a
Okay.
weekly,
So they'd be
monthly.
carved out. Thanks, Boris.
But so for the tear down, the setup and tear down,
Well, I put that in there because I just was trying to be like,
so
Wouldn't
that
take
they're
it.
keeping
I'd
to
take
the
it.
noise, so therefore they could set up, they
Yeah.
could tear down the next day.
yes.
When it's really not for profit either.
Well,
Okay.
weddings are for profit.
No, I know, but
Yeah, I was thinking no one, Just because my wife does wedding flowers, like, I don't think anyone actually tears down their wedding at midnight, and then they do it the next day, right? But I just was trying
I
to,
mean, it varies. Sometimes they pick up
Yeah.
the chairs and.
Yeah. yeah. I could just imagine, like,
Vermont tent's not gonna come at 11 o'clock at
No.
night to take down their tent.
I could just imagine someone like keeping the music really loud and saying, well, yeah, it was just like cleaning.
Clearing,
up.
yeah, cleaning up.
Turn it down, dude. Probably overthinking it, but.
I'm curious about the one event per month. So if you do one event per month, that's 12 a year.
Well, yeah, I mean,
So if
There's
you
like-
do-
like-
if-
but you're not gonna do it, you're realistically not gonna be doing it in the middle of the winter, probably, right?
I guess, yeah.
Well,
Yes,
I don't know.
Beg the question, is it just 1 month in a row? So you do, in May you do 2, and then June you do 1, and July.
So you don't need to
Trigger.
Well, we could say for something per year.
So you don't need to get a permit if it's less than.
Well, remember what we were trying to do here, and maybe this isn't the right way to do it. We were trying to solve the, I'm hosting my cousin's wedding problem. We could say, I'm making up a number, 3 events per year. I'm not saying that's the right number.
I think that's a one event per month is a loophole.
Right.
Somebody who wants
Of
to
course, that's a
do
good point.
like 8 weddings in the summer, maybe, you know.
Right, you could stack them up. So maybe we say 3 events, I don't know if this is the right number, for some reason it just springs to mind, 3 events per year. Like, who hosts more than 3 weddings a month at their house for their family?
For the family.
Much more than that.
Say something like more than personal use or.
Right.
You know, you think about like the place on Upper Valley Road, Butler venue there. If they're only doing 8 or 10 weddings a year, you know, that's still a business.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
if they're successful, they'll do one a weekend.
yeah,
Well,
right.
don't forget though, they
Yeah.
would be
Yeah.
covered by this no matter what. I mean, they're not in Underhill, but where are they? It says this section applies to any event venue that hosts any events for commercial profit.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
Or
Yeah, yeah,
any
yeah,
event venue,
I
irrespective
got
of whether for commercial profit that hosts more than one event a month.
Okay.
So you can't be annoying basically, even if
Yeah.
you're a not-for-profit.
Understood.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah.
It's all coming back
Nice.
now.
But maybe that's too big a number. I don't know. I don't know who that would really apply. I think it's all, I don't know who that would really apply to though, who's not for profit that's hosting more than one big event a month.
Yeah.
But people can think about it.
Who has that much energy when they're not getting paid?
And nobody.
Yeah, no, I don't see much.
Well, maybe I'll file it away and think about it. And if you have comments for next week, we'll fix it.
Yeah.
Sound okay?
So why do we restrict water and like, it was
Which one?
district? Let's see, where was it? It had the districts where it was allowed and not allowed.
Oh, yeah. Why did we prohibit it in soil and water conservation?
Is that the 3 acre?
No,
Yeah,
that's the biggest.
15 acres.
Oh, yeah, that's, I should know this.
There was a reason we did that. I talked to Brad about it. What was it?
So that's like your
No, I'm in
scenic
for
preservation.
scenic preservation. It would only be prohibited in soil and water conservation. And I do not remember what the reasoning was. I can ask Brad again.
That's a 15-acre zone there.
Yeah, they're the biggest, so it wasn't about size.
Right. I don't remember, well, was I not here for that one? I don't remember that part of it.
It was the very first time we spoke about it. You might not have been here. I will ask Brad what the thinking was there. I believe that came from him.
I can't even picture where that is.
I don't know.
Is that
Do you know where
like up on the mountain road?
Yeah, it's all the properties that are above 1,500 feet on the ridges.
Yeah, but that's,
Out
you
Pleasant
can't
Valley
build
Road.
above it. There are no.
I know, but if you want to know where it is, basically, it's down Pleasant Valley Road, behind soil and water.
So was it because if you have property that goes into it, that you can't like put up a tent up there and do things? Was that maybe?
I don't know why he was saying that.
Just
I'm
So
right,
he was
really,
saying what?
like, totally blank.
Forbidding?
Forbidding it in soil and what the
Yeah, I
reasoning
don't
was
know
for.
why, yeah, I don't know
Soil
why
and water.
either. I think it should be
Wish
allowed
we
in my
still had
neighborhood.
that. Where are his maps?
Yeah, there's only one map, but now you can go online and look at the.
I know, but there was a really nice map that was,
Right.
you used to have hanging up that had all the different
So here's what we'll do.
zones.
And we're
It'll be conditional and rural residential. I'll come back to you if I talk to him but subject to me talking to Brad, and there having been some great reason for it. We'll make it so it's conditional in rural residential, water conservation, scenic preservation, and soil and water conservation.
Okay. For now.
So like them Pleasant Valley Road, some of it's in soil and water and some of it's scenic preservation.
Okay. Yeah, I don't remember what that was, unfortunately, so. Okay.
And just to add to it, a few 3-acre weird things on Pleasant Valley. Road.
Yeah, right,
Like the
yeah.
old stone house.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a 3-acre.
Right.
That's why.
So they're forbidden in the flats in the village, obviously, and everywhere else. Okay, got it. Anything else?
No.
Okay. Unless anyone else has anything, we're gonna wrap up 10 minutes early, because that's all I had on tap for tonight. Although, actually, real quick, so next meeting, that section will be updated online, David. The one where you found that it said it didn't include this.
Oh,
the
the Vermont statutes?
Yeah, so we
Oh,
should be
okay.
able to do that, actually. So
Oh, good.
that's what we'll do. We'll do sawmills, and we'll do,
Yeah.
whatever that section
Yeah,
number
yeah.
was, I'm blanking.
Oh, did you get an answer on the local option, or did you get a chance to ask them about that?
I did ask.
Really?
I was told to circle back. They were focused on the PZA thing.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. I need to go back.
And then there's Sandy's thing on the 29th.
Oh, yeah. The resources inventory.
Right, natural resources.
Does everyone remember that? That
Oh,
Sandy asked us to attend if you can.
Was it the planning and zoning thing, or was that the thing for the map?
Good thing for the map. It's
Oh,
a
yeah.
presentation from their
Yeah.
consultant.
Did you guys send out or was it on a paper or something? Where was that?
No, I think we're waiting to see
Okay.
Sandy's post or whatever, but if you see it, send it
Put it in
around.
front porch forum, I think.
Oh, did she already? Oh.
I thought so. I think that's where I read it today.
Oh, it's in today?
I thought so, but I
Okay.
read it very quickly. I'll be out of town, so.
The natural resources map could be quite interesting. I mean, you're gonna see, animal corridors here and there. So you'll see, areas that are, natural habitat areas. And, it could lead to a lot of restrictions on development around town.
How do you feel about that, David?
I don't know how I feel about it.
So
It's restricted even more, right?
it's 6:30 for refreshments, 7 o'clock at the town hall
7 o'clock?
on the 29th.
Okay.
Was it on front porch forum?
Yeah, it was. It was,
Hey, I even remembered it a couple hours after reading it, so about that.
I usually get to it, but I was driving, so I didn't get to it. Usually when it buzzes my phone, I'm like on there to make sure I get the first dibs on.
See the hot
Yeah.
news on whatever someone's giving
Well,
away?
yeah.
I gave away a mower on there and I got like so many requests.
Like three things along.
Yeah, I was given the lawnmower. I felt like I should give the lawnmower away.
Did it run?
Yeah, ran perfectly well.
So, the DRB meeting, on the May 24th regarding the sawmills, right? We're gonna watch that. And then there was another one before that.
No, there's another one after that.
After that.
That if you look at the DRB, you'll see it.
Okay.
You said
So it was,
19.
Brother said it's May 6th.
May
Don't
6th.
check the date, but
It was the first meeting.
no.
The first one was,
He wanted us to look
The
at
wrong
it.
date.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
basically the DRB has 2 video hearings of the sawmill. And they wanted us to watch it both. And some people have watched the second one.
That Russ mentioned, like, there's paperwork on it, it'd be kind of nice to.
It's all online on the DRB thing. If you look up their, if you go to the DRB,
Yeah.
they have a
You have to go
list
to-
of cases that they've, I don't know, matters that they've resolved this year,
Yeah.
the whole published opinions.
Got it.
And there's 2 of them there for the sawmill. There's the first one with the landing on Pleasant Valley and the second one with the landing on Big Wisconsin.
Then you have to go to the community TV.
Right, watch it there, yeah.
Yeah.
Watch it there.
Right, yeah, watch that.
But I don't know if you've looked at, I'm sure everyone's looked at their opinions before, but there's a ton, they're long. There's like a bunch of stuff attached to them, so I think it probably has all the materials, let's just time.
In terms of going online and getting the actual notes.
Yeah, it's all, if you go to the DRB and just
Yeah.
find their opinions, I bet the opinions have like all
Okay.
the supporting materials attached. They're long usually. I might be wrong about that.
Yeah, they are. You're right.
I looked at it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we're not done. Okay, anyone else, or should we adjourn? Anyone want to make a motion to
Motion.
adjourn? David, second. Bart, all in favor?
Yeah.
All right, I'll shut up.